she tried to rewrite my past to destroy my future, I showed up with her true love and wrote the ending she feared. The folder was open on the marble kitchen island when I walked in. Photos of me, documents, bank receipts from accounts I never opened, and at the center of it all, a typed letter addressed to the hospital board where Travis worked, meticulously detailing how I, Allison Brooks, had methodically seduced a wealthy doctor 5 years my senior to escape a life of poverty and debt. Every word was poison, every detail a lie so well crafted it almost seemed true. My hands turned to ice holding those papers. They weren't trembling, not yet. The shock comes before the tremor, like the silence before thunder. "You shouldn't be here." Beverly's voice cut through the cold morning air. She stood at the kitchen entrance, perfectly dressed even at 7 in the morning, impeccable silver hair, that smile that never reached her eyes. "Travis is on the night shift. I thought you knew that." "I know where my husband is." My voice came out firmer than I expected. "What I didn't know is that you were building an entire case to destroy me." She poured herself coffee as if we were discussing the weather. The strong aroma filled the room, that special Colombian coffee she imported, the same one she always served on Sunday mornings when I was still welcome in that house. Funny how smells can become triggers. Now, that aroma only made me nauseous. "Destroy is a strong word, dear." Beverly sat down, crossing her legs with calculated elegance. "I prefer reveal the truth. There's a difference." "Truth?" I held up one of the fake receipts. "This says I maintained a secret account in the Cayman Islands even before I met Travis. I was 23, Beverly. I worked 60 hours a week just to pay for my rented room." Memory is a funny thing. She smiled, and there was something predatory in that smile. Sometimes we remember what we want to remember. Other times, the truth comes out, whether we like it or not. It was at that moment that I understood. She wasn't just lying about me, she was rewriting my history completely, fabricating an entire past where I was the calculating villain. And she had the resources, connections, and enough time to make that version seem real. Why? The question came out as a whisper. Beverly tilted her head, studying me like a scientist observes an insect under glass. "Because you were never good enough for my son, and because inconvenient truths have a way of surfacing eventually. I'm just speeding up the process." The morning sun streamed through the French windows, illuminating family portraits on the wall. Generations of Morgans looking solemnly, guardians of a legacy I would never be worthy of touching. In the center, a faded photo of young Beverly, perhaps in her 20s, smiling in a way I'd never seen in person, genuine, almost vulnerable. Beside her, deliberately scratched off the photo, the blur of a man's shoulder. Someone had been erased from there. Something in me changed in that instant. It wasn't anger, not yet. It was a cold, crystalline clarity. If Beverly could rewrite my past, then her own past wasn't as secure as she imagined. "You have until Friday." She stood up, smoothing her invisible skirt. "Travis will receive copies of everything, the family lawyer, too. Be smart, Allison. There are dignified ways to leave a marriage. I'll even help financially if you're reasonable." Reasonable. I repeated the word, savoring it. How is fabricating evidence reasonable? "Prove they're fabricated." Beverly was at the door now. "Oh, and dear, that little friend of yours, the lawyer friend, she can't help you. Not against the firm that has represented our family for 3 generations." The door closed with a soft click. I was left alone in that immense kitchen, surrounded by lies printed on expensive paper, smelling imported coffee, looking at generations of dead Morgans who would never accept me. But my eyes returned to that photo. Young Beverly, the erased shoulder. And something in her smile in that old image, a happiness I had never seen in all the 5 years I'd known her. I picked up my phone and photographed that image. I didn't know yet what I was looking for, but I was sure of one thing. Everyone has a past, and if Beverly was so determined to rewrite mine, perhaps it was because hers desperately needed to remain buried. 3 days. That's what I had before Travis received that dossier of lies. 3 days to find out what Beverly Morgan was so afraid I would discover. 3 days to learn that sometimes, to protect your future, you need to unearth someone else's past. I kept a copy of every document from that folder. I knew Beverly well enough to know that originals would mysteriously disappear. Then I left that house, breathing the cold October air, hearing the distant sound of dry leaves being swept by the breeze. I didn't know it yet, but that photograph, young and happy Beverly beside an erased man, would be the first piece of a puzzle that would destroy everything she had built. Because it turns out that the past, no matter how deeply you bury it, always finds ways to resurface. And this time, I would be the archaeologist. Meredith almost spilled her coffee when I showed her the documents. This is... Jesus, Allison! She flipped through the pages, her lawyer's eyes identifying every irregularity, every subtle forgery. This is document fraud, federal crime. If we can prove she fabricated this... And how do we prove it? I interrupted. You yourself said you can't represent me against their firm. I can't sue, not directly. Meredith pushed her glasses up, that nervous gesture she'd made since college. But investigate, ask questions, that's not a crime. We were in her apartment, small but cozy, so different from the cold Morgan mansion. It smelled of vanilla candles and old books. Safe, real. Everything my life had stopped being in the last 72 hours. Tell me about this photo, she pointed to the image of young Beverly I had sent. It's been on her wall for years. I never paid attention before. But look, I zoomed in on the image on the tablet. Someone was removed. See the shoulder here? And the strange shadow? Someone was next to her, and she erased them. Or someone erased them for her, Meredith tilted her head. People don't remove others from old photos unless there's a very good reason. Shame, trauma, or secret, I finished. My friend was silent for a moment, looking out the window at the Seattle lights twinkling in the early evening darkness. You know what you're doing, right? If we go after past, if we find something, this is no longer just defense. It's war. She declared war when she falsified my entire life. My voice came out harsher than I intended. She's not just trying to take me away from Travis. She's trying to erase me, to turn our love story into a tale of a swindler and a victim. And Travis, does he know any of this? The question hit me like a punch. Travis, my husband of 3 years, the man who swore to love me in sickness and in health, who held me when I lost my father, who cried with happiness when I said yes. He's working double shifts this week. My voice sounded distant even to me. We barely talk, and when we do, she's always there, in his head. Mom said this, Mom needs that. He doesn't see what she is, or doesn't want to see. Meredith placed her hand over mine. Her fingers were warm. Then we find out what she's hiding. Every person who constructs such elaborate lies about others is compensating for their own. We spent the night scouring public records. Meredith had access to databases I didn't even know existed. Marriages, divorces, lawsuits, property records, Beverly Morgan's life in cold, official documents. Here, Meredith stopped on a page, Beverly Ann Castellano. That was her maiden name. Castellano, I repeated. I've never heard her mention that name. Because she buried it. Look, she legally changed it to Beverly Ann Morgan even before Marion Travis's father. That's unusual. Most women change their last name after marriage, not before. What else is there about the Castellanos? Meredith typed quickly. Italian immigrant family, small business owners in Brooklyn in the 80s, restaurants, bakeries, honest but humble businesses. And here, she stopped, Arthur Castellano, Beverly's younger brother. The record photo was old, grainy, but the man looking out from the screen had the same piercing eyes, the same jawline. It could be the ghost shoulder in Beverly's photo. Brother? I frowned. Beverly always said she was an only child. Officially, she is. Meredith clicked another file. Arthur Castellano disappeared from public records in 1989. No tax filings after that year, no address, no marriage or death registered. He just evaporated. A chill ran down my spine. People don't evaporate. No, Meredith looked at me seriously, unless they have very specific reasons to want to disappear, or someone has reasons to make them disappear. My phone vibrated. Travis, finally. Mom said you broke into her house today. We need to talk. I'm coming home in an hour. I read the message 3 times. Broke into. She was already working on him, planting her poisonous seeds. He's coming, I told Meredith. She's already started. Then you have a choice. My friend saved all the files to an encrypted drive. Tell him now, without concrete proof, and risk him siding with her. Or you wait, investigate more, and pray it's not too late when you have real ammunition. I looked at Arthur Castellano's photo on the screen. There was something in his eyes, not just familiarity with Beverly. There was pain there, loss, the kind of pain that never completely heals. She didn't erase him out of shame, I spoke slowly, understanding dawning like sunrise. She erased him because it still hurts to look at him, even after all these years. A brother who disappears doesn't cause that kind of pain, Meredith murmured. But a lover, a lost love, that does. Arthur Castellano. The name echoed in my mind like a promise and a threat. If Beverly was so desperate to rewrite my past, what secrets in hers were so dangerous that they needed 40 years of silence? I touched the screen, zooming in on those sad, familiar eyes. I need to find him. My voice didn't waver. If Beverly has a secret big enough to destroy careers and fabricate evidence to protect, then Arthur Castellano is the key. Meredith nodded slowly. What if he's dead? Then I find out why she needed to erase him. I stood up, packing my laptop. People don't rewrite their entire stories for no reason, Mare. And whatever Beverly's reason is, I'd bet my life that Arthur Castellano is at the center of it. The phone vibrated again. Travis, where are you? We need to talk, now. I took a deep breath. In an hour, I would face my husband and her mother-in-law's planted accusations. But now, finally, I had a name, a lead, a thread to pull in the tapestry of lies Beverly was weaving. Arthur Castellano, the ghost in Beverly Morgan's past, the man erased from old photographs. And perhaps, just perhaps, my only chance to prove that I wasn't the liar in this family. Travis was sitting on the sofa when I got home. He was still wearing his blue hospital scrubs, but the exhaustion on his face wasn't just physical. It was the kind of fatigue that comes from carrying too much emotional weight. 3 hours. He didn't look at me. I texted you 3 hours ago. I was with Meredith. I dropped my keys on the table. The sound echoed too loudly in the silent apartment. About breaking into my mother's house? Now he looked at me, and there was something new in his eyes. Doubt. As if he were seeing me through a different filter. About stealing private documents? Stealing? My voice rose despite trying to control it. Travis, those private documents were fabricated lies about me. False accusations of financial fraud, manipulation, marriage for money. My mother wouldn't lie about something like that. But there was a hesitation in his voice. Small, but it was there. No? I pulled out my phone, showed him the photos I had taken. Look at this bank account, supposedly mine. See the opening date? April 2018. We met in June 2018, Travis. How could I be planning to marry you 2 months before I even knew you? He took the phone, studying the image. I saw his jaw clench, that small muscle that jumped when he was processing something difficult. It might have been a typo. Typo? I slid to another photo. And this sworn statement from a roommate who never existed, saying I talked about hooking a rich doctor? And these receipts for luxury purchases I never made? My voice broke. Travis, she's fabricating an entire person, a version of me that never existed. He was silent. The sound of the refrigerator turning on filled the void between us. Outside, distant sirens cut through the Seattle night. "Why would she do that?" he finally asked. But it wasn't a rhetorical question. It was genuine. Lost. Because she's afraid of something. I sat beside him, keeping enough distance not to invade, close enough to reach if he wanted. "Travis, how many times has your mother talked about her past? About growing up, about her family, about before she met your father?" "She doesn't talk much," he frowned. "Always said the past was painful, that she preferred to focus on the present." "And you never found that strange? No childhood photos, no family stories, no aunts or uncles or—" "She said the family was distant, that they didn't get along." But he was starting to question. I saw it in the wrinkles appearing on his forehead. "Why are you asking about this?" I took a deep breath. It was now or never. Because I found something. A name. Arthur Castellano. The change was instantaneous. Travis stiffened as if I had pressed a button. "Where did you get that name?" "From public records. Your mother's brother." Or maybe more than that. "He disappeared in 1989, Travis, the same year your parents got married, and your mother erased him from all old photographs." "Stop!" Travis stood up abruptly. "You have no right to snoop into my family's history." "But she has the right to fabricate mine?" The anger finally came, hot and justified. "Travis, she's trying to destroy me. I'm not being paranoid. I'm not exaggerating. She is literally and systematically building a case to paint me as a criminal." "Because maybe—" He stopped, ran his hands through his hair. When he spoke again, his voice was low, dangerously low. "Maybe she knows something I don't." The silence that followed was deafening. "You believe her?" It wasn't a question. He looked at me, and I saw the conflict there. Love versus loyalty. Wife versus mother. "She's my mother, Allison. She wouldn't have a reason to lie." "Everyone has reasons to lie." My voice came out colder than I intended. "Especially people with secrets big enough to erase other people from history." Travis picked up his keys. "I need to think. I'm staying at Mom's apartment tonight." "Of course. Run to her." The bitterness was acidic on my tongue. "It's exactly what she wants." He stopped at the door. "You know what's funny? My mother warned me. The day we announced our engagement, said you were too good to be true. I defended you. Said she was being unfair, prejudiced." He laughed humorlessly. "And now you're digging through our past, making accusations, acting exactly like a person with something to hide would act." The door closed behind him. I was left alone in the apartment we furnished together. The walls we painted light gray because it was our favorite color. The shelves we assembled one Sunday night, laughing when I read the instructions backward. Memories in every corner. But memories can be rewritten. Beverly was teaching me that. I picked up the laptop, my hands finally trembling. Not from fear, from determination. Arthur Castellano. If Beverly managed to make my own husband doubt me in 3 days, then the secret she protected for 40 years had to be devastating. I remembered Meredith's words. Every person who constructs such elaborate lies about others is compensating for their own. I typed the name again into the search engines, deeper this time, obscure records, specialized databases, and finally, on an Italian-American genealogy forum, a 2019 post. Seeking Arthur Castellano, born 1965 in Brooklyn, last seen 1989. Family searched for years. If you have information, contact. Email. My heart raced. Someone was looking for him. Someone other than me. I copied the email, started typing. Stopped. Started again. The words were difficult to form because I knew that once sent, there was no turning back. My name is Allison Brooks. I believe Arthur Castellano may be connected to my mother-in-law, Beverly Morgan, née Castellano. Are you still looking for him? I urgently need to find him. It's a matter of... I paused. A matter of what, exactly? Marriage? Sanity? Survival? It's a matter of truth. I pressed send before I could reconsider. The apartment was too silent now. I opened the window, letting the cold October air in. It smelled of approaching rain, the changing of the season, the changing of everything. My phone vibrated. For a crazy second, I thought it was an immediate reply to the email, but it was Meredith. I found something. 1989 court case. Sealed. But the case number mentions both Beverly and Arthur Castellano. I'm going to try to get access. It might take days. Days? I didn't have days. Beverly was moving her pieces quickly, and Travis was already on her board. I looked at our wedding photo on the wall. Travis and I, radiant, naive. Beverly in the background, smiling. That smile I now recognized as a mask. How many lies had she told? How many lives had she rewritten? And Arthur Castellano? Had he been the first? Or was I just the latest in a long line of people Beverly Morgan needed to erase to keep her world perfectly controlled? The rain began to fall, heavy drops hitting the window like impatient fingers. I had 48 hours before Beverly's dossier of lies was officially distributed to the family's law firm and the hospital board. 48 hours to find a man who had disappeared 36 years ago. Impossible, any rational person would say. But I had learned something in the last 72 hours. Impossible is just another word for haven't figured out how yet. And Beverly Morgan was about to learn that when you try to erase someone, you better make sure they're actually dead, because ghosts have the annoying habit of returning. The email reply arrived at 4 a.m. Arthur is alive. He's been living in Portland for 30 years. Doesn't talk about the past, but if you mention Beverly, he'll listen. Here's the address. Tony Castellano, nephew. I didn't sleep after that. At 6, I was on the road to Portland. 3 hours of driving, with only bad coffee and adrenaline keeping me awake. The address led to a small Italian cafe in the Pearl District. Castellano's, the faded sign read. Even from outside, the smell of fresh bread and espresso enveloped me. Authentic, honest, so different from Beverly's imported coffee. The man behind the counter was nearly 70, gray hair but still thick, strong hands mixing dough. And the eyes? Even from 20 feet away, I recognized those eyes from the old photo, the same ones Beverly erased. Closed, he said, without looking up. We open at 8. I didn't come for coffee. My voice sounded stronger than I felt. I came to talk about Beverly. His hands stopped. Flour fell from the dough, a small white cloud suspended in the air. Slowly, very slowly, he lifted his eyes. How did you find? He started, then stopped. It doesn't matter. I have nothing to say about her. She's trying to destroy me. The words came out in a rush, fabricating evidence, lying about my past, turning my husband against me. And I know this isn't new for her. I know that 40 years ago, she did something with you. Arthur dropped the dough, slowly wiped his hands on a cloth. You're her son's wife. Was. The correction stung. I don't know what I am anymore. He was silent for a long moment, studying my face. Finally, he sighed. Coffee? Please. He prepared 2 espressos with practiced, precise movements. The ritual of someone who had done this thousands of times. He handed me one, sat down at one of the small tables. I followed him. Beverly Castellano. He pronounced the name like a prayer and a curse. I haven't heard that name in a long time. She changed to Morgan, didn't she? Of course she did. Had to erase everything. Erase what? Us. He took a sip of coffee. We weren't siblings. Well, we were, on paper. My parents adopted Beverly when she was 16. Friend's family who died in an accident. She came to live with us. His eyes became distant. I was 18. She was, my God, she was everything. Smart, beautiful, ambitious. Had dreams bigger than all of Brooklyn. My heart pounded. You two were lovers. The word came out raw. Wrong? Maybe, but we weren't blood, and young people are idiots. We thought love conquered all. He laughed bitterly. We planned to marry when she turned 18. We were going to open a restaurant. She drew menus in the early hours of the morning. I tested recipes. We were happy. What happened? Richard Morgan happened. The name came out like poison. Your husband's father, heir to a medical fortune. He saw Beverly at a charity event on the Upper East Side. She was waiting tables, trying to save money for college. He rubbed his face. He pursued her like prey. And Beverly saw a chance. The coffee cooled between my fingers. She chose money? It wasn't that simple. Arthur stood up, went to a drawer behind the counter. He returned with an old, worn shoebox. He opened it slowly, as if it contained something alive that might bite. She was pregnant. The world stopped. What? 3 months, when Richard started courting her. My son. His hands trembled holding the box. She didn't tell him. Said she would wait until after the wedding, when she had security. But his voice broke. I wanted to do the right thing. I wanted to claim the child, marry her anyway. He pulled a yellowed envelope from the box. Inside, a faded photo. Beverly pregnant, her protective hand over her still small belly, and beside her, Arthur, smiling with that mix of pride and terror that all expectant fathers have. Richard found out, he continued, voice now more controlled, as if telling a story he had repeated 1,000 times in his own head. I don't know how. Private detective, maybe. A week before the wedding, he approached me, made an offer. What kind of offer? $500,000 to disappear, sign papers saying the child was his, never contact Beverly again. Arthur looked at his own hands, and if I refused, he would ensure my parents lost the restaurant. We had loans, debts, he had connections, he could destroy everything. You accepted. It wasn't judgment, it was understanding. I was 21. His eyes gleamed with moisture. I thought I was protecting my family, my son. I thought Beverly would live better with him than with me, a poor cook from Brooklyn. He wiped his eyes sharply. Idiots. Young people are idiots. Did Beverly know about the deal? She signed the papers too. Arthur pulled another document from the box, non-disclosure agreement, signed by Beverly Ann Castellano, Richard Morgan, and Arthur Castellano, dated March 3, 1989. She chose the money, and I let her. I took that $500,000, gave it to my parents to pay off the restaurant, and disappeared. Portland. Changed my last name in informal records, lived like a ghost. And the child? The silence was devastating. Travis, I whispered, understanding coming like an avalanche. Travis is your son. Arthur nodded slowly. I never met him, never spoke to him, but I followed him from afar. The internet made it easier in recent years. I saw when he graduated medical school. I saw his wedding. He looked at me. To you. My world was crumbling. Travis, my husband, son of Arthur, not Richard. His entire identity, his entire family history, a lie. Does Beverly know that you know? She has to suspect. That's why the agreement had such specific clauses. If I broke the silence, Richard had the power to destroy not only me, but all the Castellanos, my parents, my siblings, Tony. He closed the box. But Richard died 5 years ago. The agreement died with him. Why didn't you tell Travis then? Because he had a father he loved. He had a life. What right did I have to blow everything up because I wanted to ease my conscience? Arthur stood up, began to arrange the cafe for opening. Automatic movements. Escape into the familiar. But you, if Beverly is doing to you what she did to me, then she's afraid. Afraid of what? Of you finding out. Of Travis finding out. He stopped, looked at me directly. Beverly built an empire on lies. Wife of a rich doctor, respectable widow, matriarch of the Morgan family. But all of that began with a betrayal. She pretended Travis was Richard's son to get the marriage. Paternity fraud. And more. Richard left everything to Travis because he thought he was his blood. The house, the investments, corporate board seats, billions, not millions. Arthur went back to the dough, began kneading again. If it comes out that Travis isn't a blood Morgan, there are people who will want to contest the inheritance. Distant cousins, shareholders. The entire empire Beverly spent 40 years building, it crumbles. I finally understood. It wasn't about me. It never was. She's attacking me because I have access. I spoke slowly. I'm Travis's wife. I can see his medical documents, family health histories. If I start asking questions about why Travis doesn't have his parents' blood type, why certain Morgan genetic diseases don't appear in him, you become a threat, Arthur finished, just like I was. My phone If I broke the silence, Richard had the power to destroy not only me, but all the Castellanos, my parents, my siblings, Tony. He closed the box. But Richard died 5 years ago. The agreement died with him. Why didn't you tell Travis then? Because he had a father he loved. He had a life. What right did I have to blow everything up because I wanted to ease my conscience? Arthur stood up, began to arrange the cafe for opening. Automatic movements. Escape into the familiar. But if Beverly is doing to you what she did to me, then she's afraid. Afraid of what? Of you finding out. Of Travis finding out. He stopped, looked at me directly. Beverly built an empire on lies. Wife of a rich doctor, respectable widow, matriarch of the Morgan family. But all of that began with a betrayal. She pretended Travis was Richard's son to get the marriage, paternity fraud, and more. Richard left everything to Travis because he thought he was his blood. The house, the investments, corporate board seats, billions, not millions. Arthur went back to the dough, began kneading again. If it comes out that Travis isn't a blood Morgan, there are people who will want to contest the inheritance. Distant cousins, shareholders, the entire empire Beverly spent 40 years building, it crumbles. I finally understood. It wasn't about me. It never was. She's attacking me because I have access. I spoke slowly. I'm Travis's wife. I can see his medical documents, family health histories. If I start asking questions about why Travis doesn't have his parents' blood type, why certain Morgan genetic diseases don't appear in him, you become a threat, Arthur finished, just like I was. My phone vibrated. Message from Meredith. I got the sealed case. Allison, you need to see this, now. I opened the attached file with trembling hands. Court case. Castellano versus Morgan, 1989. Sealed by court order. I read quickly. Then I read again, more slowly, making sure I understood every word. She tried to sue you for extortion. My voice came out hollow. Richard tried. Arthur didn't stop kneading the dough, punching, shaping. After I signed the papers and took the money, he sued me, saying I had extorted them, trying to ensure that if I ever came back, it would be as a criminal. The case was dismissed, but sealed to protect the parties. He laughed humorlessly. To protect Beverly, that is. I kept reading, and then I saw it. In the attachment, paternity test performed after Travis's birth. Probability of paternity, Richard Morgan, 0%. The document was there. Evidence. Richard knew Travis wasn't his son and married Beverly anyway. Raised the child as his own. Lied for decades. Why would he do that? I whispered. Because men like Richard Morgan don't admit failures. To admit that his wife cheated on him, that the heir wasn't his, it would be admitting he was made a fool of. Easier to bury the truth, buy silence, live the lie. And Beverly let him. Beverly orchestrated it, he corrected. She's much more dangerous than Richard ever was. Richard bought silence with money. Beverly rewrites entire realities. I looked at the photo in my hand. Young Beverly, pregnant, happy. Before everything became strategy and survival. She wasn't evil, Arthur said softly, reading my thoughts. She was young, scared, ambitious. She made choices. Then she had to live with them. And the more you live lies, the more you become the lies. She's trying to destroy me because I am the only one who can expose everything. Yes. Arthur wrapped the dough, set it aside to rest. But now you have a choice, just like I did. Silence and peace, or truth and chaos. My phone rang. Travis. I answered. Allison? His voice was strange, too controlled. I need you to come back to Seattle, now. Travis, my mother wants to meet you. She has a proposal for us to resolve this civilly. Please, pause. Civilly? Beverly's favorite word. I'll be there in 3 hours. I hung up. Arthur watched me. Are you going to tell him? I looked at the documents on the table. Proof of 40 years of lies. Proof that Travis wasn't who he thought he was. That his father wasn't his father. That his mother was... what was she? I'm going to do something better. I stood up, carefully putting away all the documents. I'm going to give Beverly a chance to tell him, in front of Travis, in front of everyone. She'll deny it. Not if you're there. I looked at him. Are you ready to stop being a ghost? Arthur was very quiet. Then, slowly, he took off his apron. 36 years is long enough. As we drove back to Seattle, Arthur in the passenger seat, a decade of silence about to end, I called Meredith. I need you to arrange something. Tonight. Beverly's house. I took a deep breath. Everyone will be there, and everyone will hear the truth. Allison, are you sure? This is going to blow everything up. I looked out the window. The rain had stopped. Clear sky emerging. Some things need to explode, I said, so that the truth has room to breathe. Arthur was quiet beside me, watching the road, but I saw his lips move, counting, preparing, rehearsing words he had kept for 4 decades. And I drove, documents in the backseat, a nuclear bomb of truth about to detonate in Beverly Morgan's perfectly constructed world. She tried to rewrite my past to destroy my future, but she forgot. When you try to erase someone, you better make sure your own past is immaculate. Because ghosts, when finally invited back, tell stories you tried to keep dead. The Morgan living room never seemed so small. Beverly sat on the velvet sofa, posture perfect even now. Travis beside her, confused but loyal. Meredith near the door, hand on her phone, witness and lawyer. And Arthur Castellano, for the first time in 36 years, in the same space as Beverly. She saw him, and her wine glass slipped from her fingers. It didn't break. It fell on the rug, a red stain spreading like blood. Hi, Bev. Arthur's voice was calm, too calm. The calm of someone who has already died 1,000 times in their head. Who is this? Travis stood up, protective. Mom? Beverly didn't answer, just stared. Her lips moved but made no sound. I saw her, truly saw her, for the first time without the mask. Pure terror. His name is Arthur Castellano, I began, voice firm. And 40 years ago, Beverly was pregnant with his child. What are you talking about? Travis looked between us. My father was Richard Morgan. My mother never... Sit down, Travis. Beverly finally found her voice. Allison is clearly having some kind of breakdown, inventing stories. I have documents. I placed the folder on the coffee table, opened it. Non-disclosure agreement signed by you, Richard, and Arthur. Court case. And most importantly, I pulled out the last paper. Paternity test. Richard Morgan, 0% probability of being Travis's father. The silence was absolute. Travis picked up the document with hands that were no longer steady. I watched as the color drained from his face. Mom. His voice came out strangled. This can't be real. 55 years. Arthur stepped closer, but stopped at a respectable distance. I didn't die, Beverly. I just lived like a dead man. Out of respect for the agreement. Out of respect for what we had. He paused. And because I believed it was better for him. Him? Travis looked at Arthur. Really looked. And I saw when he recognized him. The eyes, the jawline, the shape of his hands. Are you saying that you are your biological father? Yes. Travis sat down heavily. He didn't fall. It was more of a controlled collapse, as if his legs simply gave out. Beverly, Meredith spoke for the first time. Do you have anything to say? Beverly looked at each of us, calculating, always calculating. I saw the moment she realized there was no way out. Not this time. You don't understand, she began, voice low. None of you understand. I was 17, pregnant, no real family, no future. She looked at Arthur. You were beautiful and sweet and broken. What were we going to live on? Love? Love doesn't pay bills. It doesn't provide education. It doesn't build a future. So you sold your son? Arthur wasn't accusatory. It was a statement of fact. I gave him a future. Beverly stood up, her voice rising. Travis grew up with the best doctors, best schools. He had opportunities we never would have given him, traveled the world, became a doctor. Look at him. She pointed at Travis, who was motionless as a statue. I did that. My choices gave him this life. Your lies, I corrected. You built his life on lies. So what? Beverly turned to me, and for the first time I saw the real woman behind the matriarch. Desperate, furious, human. Everyone lies, Allison, about who they are, who they were, what they did. Life is about the narratives we choose to tell. She laughed, a harsh sound. I was just better at it than most. You falsified my entire past. My voice trembled, tried to turn me into a criminal. Because you were a threat, Beverly shouted. Young, idealistic, asking questions. Why doesn't Travis look like old photos of Richard? Why isn't there any Morgan medical history in him? You were going to find out. It was only a matter of time. And then everything I built, not just for me, for him. She pointed at Travis again. Everything would crumble. Contested inheritance, destroyed legacy, shattered identity. So the solution was to destroy me first? It was to get rid of you, Beverly corrected, to pay you to leave, civilly. But you wouldn't accept. I knew. I saw it in your eyes. You're just like me when I was young. She smiled bitterly. Stubborn, stupid, thinking truth matters more than survival. Truth matters, Travis finally spoke, his voice hoarse. You lied to me my whole life about who I am, about, my God, about everything. He looked at Arthur. You knew? All this time? I made a deal to protect you and my family, Arthur replied. A choice that haunted me every day. But Richard died, Travis. The deal died with him. And when your wife found me, when she knew what Beverly was doing to her, he paused. Some ghosts need to stop haunting. Beverly sat down again, and for the first time since I met her, she looked old, defeated. What do you want, Allison? Money? I can pay. Much more than Richard paid Arthur. I don't want your money. I sat in front of her. I want something you no longer know how to give. Truth. Truth won't give you your marriage back. No, I agreed. I looked at Travis, who was still holding that paternity test as if it were a bomb. But it gives him a choice, to know who he really is, to decide what kind of man he wants to be. I turned back to Beverly. You took that choice from him since birth, just like you took it from Arthur, just like you tried to take it from me. Tears, real ones for the first time, streamed down Beverly's face. I just wanted him to have everything. You wanted you to have everything, Arthur said softly, and you used our son as a stepping stone. It's not that simple, Beverly began. No, Travis interrupted. She's right. He stood up, placed the document on the table. You two, you made choices, selfish ones. You, he pointed at Beverly, chose money over honesty. And you, to Arthur, chose silence over struggle. Then he looked at me. And you chose truth, even knowing it would blow everything up. Travis, I began. I need time. He walked to the door, stopped. I don't know who I am now. Travis Morgan? Travis Castellano? Whose son? Heir to what? His voice broke. My whole life is a lie. Your life is yours, I said. Regardless of DNA, you're a doctor because you wanted to be. A good person because you chose to be. No one can take that away. He nodded slowly. Maybe, but I need to figure this out on my own. He looked at Beverly one last time. Don't contact me. None of you. For a while. The door closed. A heavy silence filled the room. Congratulations, Beverly finally spoke, her voice empty. You got what you wanted. You destroyed everything. No, Meredith answered for me. You destroyed everything 40 years ago. This is just the consequences finally catching up to you. Beverly looked at Arthur. Are you going to claim him now? Sue for the inheritance? No, Arthur replied simply. I don't want Morgan money. Never did. But, he took a deep breath, when Travis is ready, if he's ready, I'd like to meet my son. He may never be ready. Then I lived 36 years without him. I can live more. Arthur turned to leave. At the door, he stopped. You weren't evil, Bev. You were scared, hurt. I understand that now. But you let fear turn you into something that hurts others to protect yourself. And that, he shook his head, that was your choice. He walked out of that house for the last time. 3 months later, Travis and I signed the divorce papers in April. Amicable, sad, necessary. It's not about loving you, he said, pen hovering over the signature line. It's about not knowing who I am, and it's not fair to tie you down while I figure it out. I understood. I really did. He started therapy, changed his last name to just Travis, neither Morgan nor Castellano, building an identity from scratch. He said when we met for coffee, 6 weeks after everything. Arthur sent letters. Travis didn't reply to all of them, but some, yes. A healing process. 2 strangers learning to be father and son decades late. Beverly sold the mansion, moved to a smaller apartment. Never publicly apologized, but stopped trying to control. Some learn limits only when they lose everything. And me? I went back to graphic design, started a blog about family narratives, truth versus comfort, identity beyond DNA. It resonated with people living their own truth bombs. Meredith joked that I turned trauma into a brand. Maybe I did, but I also learned you cannot build a real future on a false past. Eventually, the foundation cracks, and when it cracks, you choose. Rebuild on truth, however painful, or keep patching up lies until everything collapses completely. Beverly chose to patch for 40 years. I chose to let it collapse in 3 days. It wasn't easier, but it was more honest. Today, 8 months later, I received a message from Travis. Lunch? There's someone I want you to meet. I went. Arthur was there, and Travis, side by side, laughing at something on the menu. The resemblance was shocking, now that I knew to look. Same way of holding cutlery, same way of tilting his head when thinking. Allison, Travis smiled. Genuine, finally. This is my father, Arthur. Dad, this is Allison, ex-wife, current friend, person who blew up my life and probably saved me in the process. Nice to meet you officially. Arthur shook my hand. Travis has spoken highly of you. I hope not too highly, I joked, sitting down. We talked for 2 hours. Stories, laughter, even some uncomfortable moments. But real, all real. In the end, Travis hugged me. Thank you, he whispered, for not letting the lies continue. Thank you for surviving the truth, I replied. I walked home that December afternoon, cold air but clear sky, thinking about narratives we build and truths we bury. Beverly tried to rewrite my past to destroy my future, but she forgot. When you try to erase someone, you better make sure your own past is immaculate, because ghosts, when finally invited back, tell stories you tried to keep dead. And sometimes, just sometimes, those stories free everyone, even those who ran from them for decades. This story shows us that family is not just about blood or inherited legacies. It's about truth, even when it hurts. It's about choosing authenticity over appearances. Beverly Morgan lived 40 years protecting lies, but lies demand more lies until you no longer recognize who you are in the mirror. Travis lost the identity he knew, but gained a chance to build a new one, authentic this time. Arthur stopped being a ghost and finally met his son. And I learned that defending truth always has a cost, but the cost of living lies is always greater. Sometimes, letting everything collapse is the only way to rebuild something real. If this story touched you, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss any emotional stories. Let me know in the comments, have you ever had to choose between painful truth and comfortable lies? What did you choose? Always remember, your story is yours. Don't let anyone rewrite it. And you, what do you value more, the comfort of illusions or the freedom of truth?